So, Rick, let's just start with, for our audience who are not from Florida and maybe aren't familiar with it. You know, Florida for a long time was always sort of the turning point of at least our modern presidential elections. Not to mention that there was a little bit of a discrepancy back in 2000. I don't want to dwell on that any more than I have to at the moment. But in this last election, at least in 2016, Donald Trump, I mean, Florida was pretty much out of play, wasn't it?
It was. Florida's a true swing state. There were a lot of people believed that Clinton was going to win it in 2016, but the polls started to come in, and as they came in, every county turned red except for a handful. Obama was able to win both times here, primarily by a strong push in the central part of the state where the universities are. And that just didn't happen. The Clinton campaign didn't galvanize that same group of voter out there.
Well, I mean, do you have a sense of what that was about? In other words, was it a unique, was it unique in the sense that Donald Trump really spoke to Florida values, or was it unique in the sense that Hillary Clinton was just not particularly inspiring to certain populations in Florida for some reason, or is it part of a sort of a trajectory? I mean, what was behind that?
Well, I think that a lot of it was just the overall wanting, change. You've had the same type of government essentially for 8 years, and the feeling of change, and that Washington was in gridlock. I think that was a factor that made people open to trying something different. I think that the Clinton campaign, even though they brought star power to the state and had a lot of people going around for it, she just never galvanized, motivated people to go to the polls as much as the Obama campaign did. And a lot of African Americans stayed home. They didn't get out and vote. Part of it was some of the mixed messaging that was happening over social media. There was a certain amount of, this is in the bag. We don't really need to vote. Hillary's going to win. I think there was some of that happening, some apathy there. I think the other apathy was, she just didn't connect with them at the same level as Obama was able to do.
Okay, so with that, I mean, with that knowledge in our mind, let's turn to this midterm, because, if I was to put myself in my mind where I was a year ago, let's say, and I was thinking about the Senate race, Bill Nelson and Rick Scott. I think we knew at that point Rick Scott was running. I'm not sure if we knew who was going to be running in the Democratic primary. In fact, I think we probably didn't, right? I mean, let's start with the Democratic the race for governor. Okay. Let's start there for a moment, because
that's
Andrew
the fun
Gillum,
one. That's the fun one.
Yeah, well, that's the fun one. And let's start with that, because I think in some respects I get the sense that if the Democrats grab the governorship and the Senate, at least in Florida, it's going to be because people pulled people's I guess choices were sort of almost in that order. In other words, that the governor, we don't see this too often, it seems to me, but a new governor pulling across the line an incumbent senator is, I think, not a dynamic that is typical.
Right.
Tell us about Andrew Gillum, because I don't know that a year ago people would have guessed that he would have been the nominee.
No, he would. He was running against the favored candidate was Gwen Graham, Bob Graham's daughter, former congressman, very personable. And a lot of us, our newspaper included, sort of looked at her as, well, this is the year of the woman. That this would be, and she was very good on issues, but she was not that different from what the Democrats have run in the past down here, Sam. We've had very vanilla candidates, to say the least. Jim Smith, Alex Sink, who was the state CFO, chief financial officer, who lost to Rick Scott the first time. The last time they had the governor's race, it was Charlie Crist, a former governor running, had switched parties. and they were all calm, leveled candidates that didn't excite voters. Andrew Gillum is I think the new type of candidate that the Democrats really need. A lot of bold ideas. He doesn't back off of an idea. He won't let himself get labeled by the other side. He responds to attacks immediately. And
I want to talk to you. I mean, I just want to put a pin in that for the moment.
Okay.
But I've seen some of those debate clips, and that was stunning.
It is.
But and I want to talk about that. But continue. He's got a lot of bold ideas, and he's. I mean, is he the first African American candidate for governor in Florida's history?
Well, outside probably Reconstruction, I believe he is. He's definitely the first of a major political party to be their nominee going into the general election. And he is dynamic. He meets people well, and he had a really good pitch when it was Gwen, and that we had a lot of other candidates too. Phil Levine, a popular mayor from Miami Beach, was in there. Jeff Green, a billionaire that put his money into the campaign. And Andrew sort of seemed to be on the edge of this, but he would go around and say, we can do what we've done in the past. He would tell the Democratic people in all the communities, we could do what we did in the past, and we could lose again. I will win. And he got a real good influx of money about 10 days before the primary, and you could just see the campaign flip, just see the enthusiasm start to come out, that Obama-type enthusiasm. And it has carried over into this general election, and DeSantis was slightly ahead coming out of the primary. In fact, Republicans, I talked to a lot of Republican power brokers, a lot of consultants, and they were excited that Andrew Gillum was the opponent. They thought that he's going to be so easy to beat. And it's been just the opposite. And their candidate, Ron DeSantis, is turning out to be more and more of a one-note singer, and with not an empty suit.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, tell us a little. So this dynamic, we have someone who is. I mean, Ron DeSantis. He's not an old person. I mean,
they're both about the same age. I think one's 40, 41. The other one's 39. They're young, both of them.
Right. But Gillum comes off as just simply. He just seems to be different in the sense that. DeSantis is saying the same thing that a Republican running for office could have been saying, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I mean, he's a little bit more brash, but we've had certainly Republicans run for governor, let's say up in New York State, who sound like him. DeSantis, mentions Donald Trump, but we've had guys up here who sound exactly the same.
Right.
Same type of attitude, sending around faxes of racist jokes about Obama, stuff like this. But Gillum sounds very different when it comes to his politics in Florida. I mean, you mentioned that we've had that in Florida in particular, there's been a lot of sort of just non-offensive Democrats.
Exactly.
Right?
Perfect.
And let's take a break. When we come back, I want to hear more about Gillum, and I want to talk about how, we got Bill Nelson there, who's running for Senate, who I think maybe a little bit less so right now, but about 2 months ago, people were very scared about what was going to happen to Bill Nelson, because we talk about non-offensive. This is a guy who doesn't seem to have left his office in the course of campaigning in Florida. And let's talk about that, how Andrew Gillum may actually end up, I don't know if he's going to save the Senate for us, but he could very well save that Senate seat. We got to take a quick break. I'm Sam Seder, Ring of Fire Radio. We'll be right back with Rick Outzen.